We're back at it with Connect This. Wanted to start off by saying that we know that you have a choice in your talking head broadband commentary shows, and we appreciate that you've chosen us. I'm excited to bring back the regular crew today. We have me. I don't think I introduced myself at all last week, so maybe I should do it twice today. Get one in the bank for next week. I'm Chris Mitchell at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance in St. Paul, Minnesota. We have Kimberly McKinley from UTOPIA. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
And we got Mr. Doug Dawson from CCG.
Hey, good to be here. What else would I do on a Thursday afternoon? So.
Hey, but we're glad to see Doug here on time this week. So,
yeah.
I decided I was going to be classy and not say anything.
They finally decided not to invite me to my 20-year-old AOL email account.
Doug, did you go back and watch right before? Because we're having a chat and all of a sudden I just saw a little alert that you had tweeted that the show was starting soon, and I was like, oh. So Doug's apparently okay. He's just off by an hour. We also have our longtime co-host Travis Carter with USI Fiber. Welcome back.
Hey, Chris. I didn't understand why'd you miss lunch today? What happened? Were you sick or you okay?
No, I'm feeling great. My son had a positive test on Sunday, and so we didn't want to risk it with anyone. And my wife and I both tested negative. I've had no issues. She kind of has some symptoms that she's fighting something off, but I don't know. The vaccine seems to be beating the crap out of the virus in my household. So no one's really down. My son is playing a heck of a lot of video games.
Nice.
So
nice. Well, me and the dog, we missed you at lunch today. So
yeah, well, I mean, I really missed you guys. I'm looking forward to that. I am a huge fan of pinball, and so I look forward to hitting the table with you at some point when you're.
All right. You will see how terrible I actually am at it. So.
Now, I did warn people we have a question we're going to start with. We're going to talk about a variety of hot topics. Certainly anyone that has any questions or things that they would like us to talk about should throw them in the chat. We already have one that I'll address from one of our longtime viewers. But I first want to ask, and we already know what Doug's going to say because he went on a little bit of a rant in the green room. NFTs. Curious if you're long or short on them. Kim, have you come to a conclusion for yourself?
I feel like since I just learned what an NFT was 5 minutes ago, that I'm going to the long game on this. Because it could be worth something down the line. I'm kind of a commitment kind of girl. So if I'm in, I'm in. I'm going for the long game. This is my answer here.
Travis, are you all about any Star Wars NFTs or anything like that?
I would not recommend people take my advice. I am the guy that bought a pizza back in the day for 10 Bitcoins. So,
$1 million.
So I'm not sure you want to. And then I proceeded to mine 1,500 of them and sell them all. So no, do the opposite of what I would do. So I am, I guess, very, very, very short on the topic.
And Doug, I don't know if anyone's shorter than you, but you want to just say a word about it?
Well, they have a little bit of use for artists who are selling their work legitimately, but something like 90 to 95% of them are largely scams because you're not actually buying artwork. You're buying links to artwork, so you just own a link. And so they're just one of those things where if it's money if somebody is willing to pay you for it. The long term, it's a fad. It's going to wear out. There will be it'll reduce itself down to stuff that's really worth something. So I think it's largely a scam. So
didn't they say that about Bitcoin back in the day too?
We're not really sure if they're wrong or not about that.
90% of those coins that start up and die are also scams. I mean, there's plenty of those scams out there. So I mean, there's 1,000 different currencies now. So most of those are scams.
I'm long. I feel like this is going to be a big deal. I'm a fan of Scott Galloway on Pivot, and I think it comes down to there's a lot of people in America that have a lot of disposable income, and I think there's going to be a lot of money in this sort of thing as we move into the metaverse. So I'm willing to be wrong about it. Carl Bodie could not be more anti, and has a lot of good commentary on it on Twitter. I'm not going to sit here and tell anyone they're stupid about it, but I think there's real potential there.
I tend to agree with him on almost everything. So there you go.
So
Chris, is this a distraction from what everybody really wants to know?
What does everyone really want to know?
Has the bet been won yet? Are we close? I mean, how much
It's
more
not
time?
February yet. I still gotta go and figure out what the exact date is. I
just
mean,
wanted
at
to
this
get
point, the debt has been won. It just won't be collected for a while. And you know,
Okay.
if you're gonna be out of town for most of the year, from what I understand, traveling. So I don't know how I'm gonna be able to
Well,
make good
if
on
we
it.
work out the logistics, can I just bill you for them, or do you have to be present?
Yeah, you must be present to redeem.
Okay.
So we're going to. It's nice that we see Ryan Coleman already had a comment there. Ryan helped clear up the picture from last week. It was a DAS, and so Travis was the first one to suggest that. So Travis got it right. The photo from last week. We have a different thing we're going to start with this week. We're actually going to show a short video that our technical director, Henry, and I don't know, I always feel weird when I'm about to say a title for Henry because it's more like the person who makes all of the magic happen is who Henry is. And he developed the short video that features some of Travis's crews. And so we're going to play that for 2.5 minutes. And then I don't know if Doug or Kim have actually viewed it, but we'll see how they react to it.
You're connecting to the internet. You're connecting to a series of networks. These networks are working together to share information instantaneously across far off distances. And when you sign up for internet access through a service provider, you get plugged into its local network, giving you the key to infinite information. Here's how it works. There are many ways to access the internet from your home, but let's focus on fiber optic networks because they're the most reliable, fastest, future-proof option. When a fiber network is created, technicians will make a web of fiber pathways throughout the community, away from the central office, like the roots of a tree. These fiber lines can either be hung on utility poles or installed underground in tubes that are called conduit. Conduit is tubing that's used to protect fiber optic cable from damage. This fiber service provider, USI Fiber, has built a network in Minneapolis that runs entirely underground using conduit. It runs under streets and the grass lining sidewalks. Once this part of the network is built, USI Fiber can start hooking up homes. This process is known as connecting the last mile of the network. These technicians are using what's called horizontal directional drilling to make a pathway to the house without hitting any other important pipes or infrastructure. When the drilling work is finished, they pull conduit through the drilled pathway before threading fiber optic cable through the conduit. The fiber will then run down the street to the access terminal where it will be connected to the larger network. Once it's connected to the larger route, the crew at this home will send a beam of red light through the fiber in less than a millisecond. A technician back at the central office will see a cable strand light up, signaling the connection has been made. Once the crew identifies the address they are hooking up, the technician plugs the fiber strand into a port in the central office. And voila! This family now has fiber to the home service.
Boom. So Kim, did we nail it?
I think that I know Travis has an active network, right, Travis?
You are correct.
There looks like there was some aggregation points in some of those like home to the central office videos. But besides that, we were pretty good.
Yeah, and a lot of the GPON networks will actually put pedestals out in the street.
Mhm.
Ours actually goes back to the building, so.
No, I was just talking about the drawing that was just a little technically off. I mean, come on, Chris.
I didn't see it. I'm going to go back and look at it very seriously and clearly to see if I see any aggregation points. So
Yeah, I was just saying because it doesn't look like it was home run, just because it looked like it was passive.
Well, we did have a conversation. Everyone on my staff knew that it was home run. So we did talk about that. Travis, you sent me a text that said awesome, but I wasn't sure if it was a reaction to the video or not.
No, I liked it. I really liked it. It was very well done.
Cool. Doug, any thoughts?
Well, first off, first time I ever heard building a web of up and down the streets. That's kind of spidery, kind of a little bit creepy there. But no, there's surprisingly few videos like that actually show somebody doing it. As many jillion people have built fiber no one shows it like that.
I've talked with people
that's
about
great. Yeah.
when I've tried to do video around this, sometimes the contractors have, been like, oh, we have to review it to make sure that everyone's up to doing everything exactly properly, and couldn't possibly show something that might be, and then it takes like 3 weeks, and then you get back to them like, oh, we don't even know if we're going to do it, and just
Right.
One thing I need to ask Travis about this is I saw it like that you can go from the directional drilling into the home without hitting anything else, like sprinkler lines. Because I mean,
oh no, Kim, we fix so many sprinkler lines every year. But we run up to a nid on the side of the house, so I would probably say 2 or 3 times a year we will actually directionally bore into somebody's basement. Oops.
While you're there, do you just say, well, while we're here, we'll just throw it in?
Yeah. Oh no. Our best one is we directionally drilled into a Volkswagen one time. My favorite.
Yeah, I had one where we drilled into a septic tank. That wasn't.
Oh yeah. The contractor called up and said, "We have a problem." I'm like, "No, we don't. I'm okay." Sounds like you now own a Volkswagen. I'll tell you what was so funny is the kid that owned it. He was so excited because he'd been trying to sell it, and we had to buy it at retail price. So, anyways.
I thought you meant like one that was like some Volkswagen from like 1940 that had been buried and like you.
No, this was sitting there just innocently on the side of the road waiting for its owner to come drive it, and the drill head popped out, and let's just say it's amazing what a directional drill can do to the inside of a Volkswagen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to be rolling over in a second into the broadband nutrition label. But first, I wanted to address a comment in the chat because this is something that I have strong feelings about. It is the, yep, there we go. I've had people object to the term monopoly with broadband, and they use oligopoly or oligopolies. I am a huge fan of the word monopoly. I use it in every opportunity. Curious, Doug, how will you react?
You can't call it an oligopoly anymore when it's cable companies competing against DSL. That's monopoly. There was a time, 2001, when both of the companies were offering 1 megabit products. That was fair, open competition, except they still got together and colluded to keep the prices high. So oligopoly was probably the best description then. But, in AT&T cities, they're not even selling new broadband. How close do you have to get to be a monopoly? And so, now I don't know that they're an oligopoly anymore when Travis is kicking their butt, but that's a different question. So,
Kim, any reactions?
First of all, I love the game Monopoly in general. So
nobody likes that game. Nobody. People play it because they don't know that there's other better games out there, but nobody likes that game.
Okay, I'm the one. Second of all, I would agree with Doug for once in my life. So congratulations, Doug. I actually believe that it's a monopoly either. I don't think it's an oligopoly. So, but I think to each their own, right? I think to each their own of how they view competition in this marketplace.
She agreed with me. What do I win?
Travis?
I was just impressed that we had a viewer, Lada Loma Savona, that we kicked off. I mean, that we blocked. That was kind of new.
Yeah. I'll say that.
We have so many viewers that we can actually block them now. So
so we just learned that.
Yeah, we did. The issue is you really got to ask yourself: is DSL even a competition for cable anymore? I mean, cable is so far superior to DSL, so I think it would be difficult to, who is the dominant player in most of these markets and who will it continue to be for years and years and years. The cable network has, unless there's a fiber overbuilder in those areas, wireless isn't going to do it. DSL is effectively dead. So it's going to be all cable from here on out.
Well, even in a situation in which you might have in Minneapolis, let's say, where you have CenturyLink fiber, Comcast cable, some other USI Fiber company who knows what they do. I would still call Comcast and CenturyLink monopolies. And that's because the term monopoly, I think, has a lot of value historically in organizing around the idea of a company that just has too much power, too much control. It's not about what appears in economic textbooks about like, oh, there's only one and da-da-da-da. It's about the fact that they set the terms of the marketplace and they do it nationally. And so for me, it's not about the number of competitors. It's about the amount of power that they have in terms of setting the agenda. So I like the term monopoly, and I shall continue to use it.
But the barrier of entry is so incredibly high that the vast majority, what did we just determine? 82% of people live in metro areas that will never have competition, no matter how much is thrown at it.
Well, they'll have competition in, I don't know, 15 cities in Utah, right? Like a couple of counties in Montana, it looks like.
It's 18 cities in Utah. Thank you.
Boom. Yeah, I knew it's probably like going to be 21 by the time we have another show here. The way you're going.
I don't want to say that that's not important, or Minneapolis is important, but until you start getting New York, Chicago, LA, where everybody lives in this country, the rest of us are kind of a rounding error.
Well, that goes back to my bet that we all bet on my side, except maybe Chris, was that like open access networks or muni networks are never going to go into an NFL city. They're never going to.
I think you're wrong, and I think we're going to know that soon. I'm excited.
Let's not forget the important statistic. Comcast, Charter, AT&T, and Verizon, 75% of the entire broadband market, those 4 companies. Everybody else is a footnote. So
yeah. So I want to move on to the thank you, John. I'm glad you brought that up, and people should feel free to strategically use the word monopoly or not as they see fit, but that's my thinking on it. Broadband nutrition label. We have an example that we'll show in a second, but Doug was very excited to get Travis's take on this. The FCC has passed the NPRM, the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, that they are trying to figure out how to implement a broadband label consistent with what Congress has told them to do. And that's on the street. We'll soon have a comment period, but I'm curious how Travis is reacting.
So I guess a little bit of a definition here, I think that I'm a little concerned about related to this. So where is the delineation point where this broadband fact ends? And I guess what I mean by that is, okay, obviously things, the month to month and all of that is relatively easy. But when we talk about if somebody's getting 300 megabit, 500 megabit, or gigabit, does that end at the handoff from the internet provider, or does that delve deep into their network?
No, it's at the handoff, right?
And then the question is, and I guess I would ask Kim this, do you, at least from my experience, you're guilty till proven innocent in this game. Mm-hmm. And so what's your methodology for proving that customers are getting what they're paying for?
Every install that we do a speed test and record it on our technician's computer to make sure that when we leave the house that they are giving the speeds that they are paying for from their provider. Okay. After that, you just don't know, because I think that's what we experienced is you leave the house and they were like, I'm getting 5 meg. And you're like, no, you're not. And then you roll trucks and you're like, you are using Windows 95. A gig connection doesn't work on Windows 95 computer. And so it's really trying to not say that the customer is wrong, but not to say we're right. And it's like a middle ground of what that looks like. For me.
I would love it if this nutrition label just simply stated how much does your monthly bill actually cost.
Mm-hmm.
And
that is one of the factors.
It's on here, and you also have to disclose if you have a special, what's it going to be when the special's over. You have to disclose all the little hidden fees. So cable companies are going to hate this, man. They're going to hate
as well as prices, introductory rates, data allowances, which is the broadband caps, the broadband speeds, network management practices, and among other things. And that's one of the question is, what are those other things?
But on this, how often do we refresh it? So if they submit this data label today, this nutrition label, when does it go out? Is it good for a year? Are we going to do it every 6 months? How often are we refreshing this?
That has to all be determined. That's why the NPRM. Now, the way they write the NPRMs, 99% chance they're just going to pass it like it's written, unless they get some amazing comment, right? So, what they do from NPRM is they test that actual rule, and then they work out those little details. They're not in there.
So Ryan has a comment.
They're talking about implementing by August, is what they're. So I mean, this is on the burner here. So.
There's a comment from Ryan noting that firewall and I would say or other parts of the home network setup could introduce challenges. This is where when I visited Travis 2 or 3 years ago, we were talking about either a fixed wireless product that you offer, and you were just showing me exactly what people were getting at that. Every single device was reporting to you. I know that you can't do that with like old school DSL. A lot of the equipment doesn't support it, but I would assume a lot of the equipment today has an audit feature in which the ISP should know what it's delivering to its own modem before it's handed off to the customer.
Yes, I mean, so we've gone now in 2021. I've been deploying technology in the consumer's home where we can run speed tests remotely. Again, the biggest challenge is people don't understand what this means. So, like, to Ryan, I can't tell you the number of like old-fashioned 100 megabit Linksys routers that somebody bought at Goodwill, and they still want to keep using it because they spent $20 on it 10 years ago, and then insist that they're only getting 20 megabit or 50 megabit through their system. You got to do the education, and that's where if we have a label that says, "Hey, we're providing you a gigabit," yeah, as long as it's just gigabit to the door. I think the label on pricing would be very valuable for us. And I know it would be very valuable probably for Kim too, because we fight that every day. We're a flat rate service, and people think that their Comcast bill's $50, but when they're done with it, it's actually $89.
And you can't go to the web and find the real prices of most of the cable companies.
No, I do it all the time.
I try all the time. You just can't find them. Yeah, so.
But is this self-reported from the ISPs? Or are we like checking what they're saying? Because that's I'm probably going to put comments in this, because if there's no teeth behind enforcement, this will be another farce. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, Jim's point is, sorry, Kim. Yeah.
No, it's just ridiculous if we're going to say, oh, Comcast is giving you $250, but when I really like do a speed test with everything working perfectly, I'm getting 130. Like, it just
so. How does a cable company do this? I mean, in a perfect world, I feel like we might just be like, well, Comcast has to build all new infrastructure. But like in St. Paul, there's some neighborhoods where they're delivering, above what they advertise, and then there's other neighborhoods where they're consistently not hitting that. So,
and how are they going to report that? Are they going to report that by neighborhood and be honest? No, not in a million years. No way are they going to tell the bad neighborhoods.
And so, like, this is where, I mean, how does one honestly implement this? I'll come back to this in a second, Travis. Say what you're going to say.
Well, and go ahead.
I'm just saying that the mapping people should be in charge of this. That's what I think should happen.
Perfect. I mean, it's not just the neighborhoods. I mean, how does a WISP do that? It's distance related and tree related. Different speed, night, day, different when the leaves come out. I mean, to really are they really going to report speeds on these labels by customer? I don't think so. So I mean, there's a whole lot of problems here. I agree with Travis that the pricing is the one that matters the most.
Yeah.
So because that customers have no way to know that when they try to buy broadband service.
Are we talking about, and I haven't looked at it, I don't think it's on there, but we're not talking about the technology either, whether it's DSL.
Oh no, that's on here. That's on here.
Is it on it?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm wrong.
So,
but they have stuff like packet loss. What customer is going to understand?
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, I mean, some of this does seem like less necessary.
I did lose my package. It showed up today from Amazon, so I don't know what you're talking about.
But I was going to say, I mean, one of the things that we saw with the proposed testing that was supposed to be done to verify the Connect America funds were spent. Doug, stop laughing. Was sort of the 80-80 rule, right? Was that like you're supposed to be within 80% of the speed, 80% of the time, and stuff like that? To me, that seems reasonable.
Well, no, that's 80% of the time, and they only sampled like 0.5% of the customers.
Well, and part of the challenge is,
and the ISPs got to pick who got tested. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that it was like the model that I would pick entirely, but there's also a lot of that was crap DSL, right? I mean, I gotta think like Comcast certainly can do a remote speed test on my router.
I don't think they can.
Huh. Okay. Well, they can turn it off. They can send it a number of signals.
I don't think they put the network management tools in. DOCSIS doesn't have that automatically built in. It could be added, but I bet they've not done that.
Well, and then
I don't think they really care. So
Roger makes the last key point that I want to make sure we covered here, which is exactly that. Like, when is the speed test? And Travis brought this up when we chatted about it earlier, which is like you really need to like find out peak speeds.
Right.
So.
Yeah,
No,
I mean,
I think
you're
you
gonna
have to find. I think you find just the opposite. What are the slowest speeds? What happens when the network's busy? That's the speed that matters the most.
Well, that's the peak times.
Okay.
And
Peak
I
times, yes.
love that Roger's comment is nobody cares if they get 100% of their speed at 2 a.m. I'm pretty sure he does, because I think that's when he does most of his DR daily.
Well, that's the thing is, if you really want to do it, Sunday night at 7 Central or 8 Central Monday night, that's when you should run your speed test. But let's also be fair. Every single network across the world has breakage in it. There's big breakage in these networks. So if every single person ran speed tests at the exact same moment, there isn't a network around that's going to pass that test.
Right.
And there's one other piece that I want to make sure we hit on too, which is Jim Troutman says, well, packet loss is actually quite important. How many people understand? The other piece of this that we haven't discussed is that it's not just about a person shopping for services who can use this label. This label is also an opportunity to build a national database of how much stuff costs in different areas and to compare different metrics. And so having packet loss on there, even if your typical person shopping for a service doesn't care, it can still help in other ways to have that information in a centralized database.
Except
And where's packet loss? Where?
70% of Comcast customers are in bundles. So what are they paying for broadband? Nobody knows, and Comcast won't tell you. You don't find out until you try to drop the other services, and then you're paying $90. And so, yeah.
I think we have consumers. Consumers are different. How they consume data, how they shop is very different. I mean, I would say that I hear more about packet loss from customers than I should, but the customers who know about packet loss are the ones who are going to be the most vocal about it as well, because they understand. So you can't, and I agree with one of the comments that came up, is you can't just go to the basic level of speed and price point, because there's a lot of smarter consumers out there in this space than I think we give them credit for at this point.
I'm going to use that as an opportunity to move forward because we have a number of other topics I want to get to. And the next one is in that shot of Kim there where she was dominating. You could tell that she's actually sleeping with the signage that that she cares so much about, because she's poured herself into this project. So let's give a chance for Kim to tell us about Yellowstone Fiber.
Yeah, so I'm up here in Bozeman, Montana today, not my usual office. And I put the signage behind me because I didn't want anybody to judge my bed making skills, since we don't have room service anymore or hotel service. But we're up here, and we announced a few months ago that we're an operational UTOPIA Fiber is an operational partner with Bozeman Fiber. Well, we after announcing this and going through it, this is really a Gallatin County project. So we didn't want people to be mistaken that it's just a Bozeman City project. And so we went through some names and came down to Yellowstone Fiber, not because there's a popular TV show about it, because they just thought that was part of the culture and the brand identity up here. So we were here doing a press conference earlier, just announcing that and hearing from the deputy mayor and some of the people who have been key stakeholders in making this happen. It's a $65 million deal of investment going into this county. And it's for an open access network to connect all of the rural and urban areas. So just excited.
Yeah. And Kim, it was made possible in part by people who volunteered their time to do it, right? I mean, volunteers really made a difference here. It's not impossible that, we're seeing this in Vermont too. Billions of dollars are going to be distributed across this country based on volunteers helping their local governments make these decisions.
Absolutely. When Bozeman Fiber was created, it was created by businessmen who saw the need. A lot of them came from the schools, the hospitals, and all of these other anchor institutions in Bozeman. And they just saw a need a long time ago. They started the network. They built as much as they can, but they didn't have any funding to really finish it out. So that's where I always say that the Bozeman project is kind of my fault, because I picked up a phone 2 years ago to help them out, to see where they were. And now we are here today. So yeah, I think but I think you're right, Chris. An important takeaway of this is how much citizens can get done if they rally and really think creatively to make these projects happen.
And I would add, I work now in several hundred counties. And the ones who have very active volunteer groups are the ones that find the solutions. And the ones that don't have those groups never find their way forward. So, I mean, it's not only important, it's essential, I believe. So.
Travis, any questions about Yellowstone?
No, congratulations. So did you guys acquire an already existing conduit system there, or are you constructing it, or what is the...
So UTOPIA Fiber does not own any of the assets. We are just helping on the operational back end. It is actually owned and going to be operated by Bozeman, or was formerly Bozeman Fiber, now Yellowstone Fiber, which is a nonprofit, a 501c3.
But have they dug any? Is it live?
Yeah, so they had about 300 customers before we took over, mostly businesses, and now we're really going to go into the communities and hit residents as well as businesses throughout the community.
Congratulations. What kind of construction challenges are up there? That's a different environment than Utah.
It's like the frozen tundra up here.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit interesting of how like the dynamics and working through some of the dynamics of some of the weather challenges that we're seeing. And I mean, we don't know what we don't know yet. So we're still in the engineering phase of looking at what everything looks like, where we can go. So, I mean, in a few episodes, Travis, I'll probably have a better understanding.
I'm just curious if it was like an aerial network underground or...
Travis wants to know if the elk are slowing you down.
Yeah, no.
First of all, if I see an elk, I will probably go try to take a selfie with it. So yes, they're slowing me down. Are they slowing our construction crews down? Probably not. But it was like the event today. I've never been at an event that had more of really a lot of local businesses and people who traveled a very far way to make this happen. I mean, to put it into perspective, and I heard this number like last night, is that the state has allocated $230 million to push out into the broadband efforts in Montana. And I mean, we're putting $65 million into this county alone. So it's a significant amount, and that's not a part of the 230, but that's a significant investment in Montana, one of the least connected states in America right now.
And so just to be clear, you said the we, that's the royal we. Right. This is money being raised by private investors who are doing it on the strength of the business plan and your operational history at UTOPIA.
Absolutely. I mean, to say that we did this plan and the financing mechanism has really, there's no city backstop. It was the county was used as a conduit to make this happen. And that we were under a 4% interest rate for a non-backstop bond, unheard of. And I think that is a lot of credit to the team at UTOPIA and the credit and the reputation that we've built over the past 10 years. I know Roger's watching today, so I won't give him much credit, but I mean, a lot of it is because of the leadership team that has been in place to make this happen. So I think it's just another project that we're going to see, and we're going to see it through. And I guess I will be in Bozeman a lot, like freezing my tail off.
Okay, so we're gonna transition from that into, I don't know why anyone would give money to that, because according to multiple op-eds and reports that have come out in the past 2 weeks, all municipal networks fail. These things are disasters. You're fooling yourself. Not only that, the people that support municipal networks are actually socialists who want to destroy the entire free enterprise system. So it seems like I don't know. It seems like a problem.
That was the first time I found out that I was a socialist.
Were you listed? Yeah. I only showed up in the footnotes. I wasn't even accused of being a socialist. I was forgotten.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely one of those socialist people who believe in municipal broadband. So I had no idea myself. So it's, you learn something new every day. But that was the politest thing they called everybody. So yes.
So what we're talking about is there's a couple of reports from different groups. One is a revival of a report done by the Comcast Center at the University of Pennsylvania. It's not its real name. It's just how I think of it, because it just so happens to be the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and from a person that echoes Comcast's talking points. From my favorite, of course, is nobody needs a gigabit. Comcast starts delivering a gigabit. Everyone needs a gigabit. So Professor Yu, Kim, you've had some interactions with him. So he issues a report that says these networks are never going to break even.
I do have a history with Professor Yu, and since I do have a history of him writing some stories about the UTOPIA Fiber history, And when he's asked for the materials, he's only asked for the bad years of Utopia. So I've got an email saying, I want your financial reports from 2006 to 2009. Nothing like past then in which we've been successful. And then he comes out and says, see, this is a failure. Utopia is a failure. And I'm like, you're only telling one half of the story, Professor. So until I don't agree with anything he says, because I don't think he's actually telling the whole story. I think he's telling the story that he wants to hear, not what is actually happening in the U.S. So I would challenge him if he's watching this. Yeah, like, let's come and talk about the recent history. And if you want to give a full and balanced report, then I expect a full and balanced report.
Oh, we know that he doesn't want to give a full and balanced report, because in his first report, he reported that even though it looked like Chattanooga, Wilson, and I think Lafayette were doing well, in fact, they were going to fail because they had massive balloon payments at the end of their debt term. When he published the report, I wrote to him and I said, where did you get that? That's a flat out lie. And then he came back to me and said, you know what? I misunderstood their debt structures. I'm sorry, honest mistake. And he said, I'll issue a retraction and give it to you. And that was very kind of him. But if you download that report, and I mean, I assume today, but when I checked 3 months ago, if you download that report, it still claims, like, what academic doesn't freak out upon making such a dramatically incorrect claim and fix it? I'm not even an academic. Like, there's a lot of people who don't even think my brain works. And yet I freak out when we make small mistakes and we fix them.
I think Kim is amazingly polite, because it's a paid hack piece. Talk about trying to be honest. He's doing Comcast has given him a check to put out corporate blather. Remember, these reports are not for the public. The public gets them. These reports are to hand to legislatures, particularly at the state and local level, to talk them out of doing stuff. And so that's the actual market for these. So
it is not clear that Comcast handed him a check. Most likely, Comcast wrote a check to somebody who wrote a check to somebody who then funded this, who then sponsored this other thing.
Correct.
And lo and behold,
right. But that's how
we see that with the New York School of Law all the time as well.
Yeah, that's what I was. And Bob just made a comment about the University of Pennsylvania being behind, like, having their name associated with this would be I'm wondering how they feel about it as it continues to go on, and what, like, is the University of Pennsylvania behind this? Because their name is being associated and thrown out to give him credibility.
There's other people. There's other people in the University of Pennsylvania who are fed up with him, and but I mean, like, he brings in money, and universities. I mean, you have to search long and hard to find someone who's more critical of the Ivy League schools than me. So, like, don't even get me started. But like, like an ethics claim, like, please, like, these places, like, have entire departments that are that exist to basically screw over 95% of the people on the planet. So, like. Oh, there I go. I'm going to calm down. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, let's not forget, this is one article, and then there's 25 other industries that have the same thing going on at these universities. This is
and it's not new. In the 1930s, you see the exact same thing around electrification. I mean, it's just it's. Right. So I do want to say this is hilarious. So one of the group that attacks us the most, and the one that really called us socialists and worse and whatnot. I got an email from them just before this show. Someone reaching out from ITIF, which is an organization that just exists to take money from big corporations and then say ridiculous things that will give talk shows or news programs a chance, like a source to make claims that are obviously not true. Anyway, ITIF used to be a more serious foundation, the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation. Total joke now. Anyway, they're reaching out from Washington, D.C. to propose an awesome broadband expert to consider for your podcast. Joe Kane focuses on broadband and spectrum policy. He's the new director of broadband spectrum policy at the Information ITIF. He's a great speaker, so I'm sure you'll enjoy having him. I'm happy to put you in touch and let me know if there's anything else I can help with on this. I'm sure that Joe is probably, he comes from the R Street Institute, and they do some good stuff on pro-market policy. In other cases, they're totally bought and paid for by the ISPs, I feel like. So I don't want to prejudge him, but I got a big kick out of them reaching out to me right now.
You of all
people. He should be on the show. Yeah.
I have to admit that there's more of a chance that he'll say some true things in spectrum policy than he would about municipal broadband. So, yes.
I mean, I just have to challenge all these, like, saying that we're socialists. I mean, I live in a state of Utah, and if you're not familiar with Utah politics, we're probably the farthest thing from called from socialist in Utah.
I'm friend with socialists, but they don't like me very much when I talk about my views on the economy.
Like, it's so funny because some of the people who are the newest cities that are joining the Utopia network are some of the most conservative in the state. I think it's, how do you view this? How do you view, like, is this competition? I mean, I guess we come at it from, it's a muni open access network, so we're enabling the private sector, but it's really comical of how these attack pieces are not even factual, or they don't even have any like context behind them, because the most amount of muni networks, as far as I know, is based out of Utah. So
I think Iowa has you beat.
oh gosh, they beat us.
They beat everyone because they're all little tiny, and there's a million of them, man.
Travis, you have any thoughts as we're just ranting away on this?
You know, sometimes I feel like I missed an episode of this show. I don't even know what you guys are talking about. So what is this?
We're talking about my career.
Well, I feel like this thing was released. I don't remember you sending me a link to it.
Oh no, it's just floating around out there for those of us who like obsess over all the different news. Like this is like, it's like the small newspaper in Michigan and like in another one somewhere else, and then yeah, it's just.
But in fairness with these,
I didn't want to waste your time, Travis.
What are the other options for these towns? I mean, the reality. What are the other options?
Right.
So DSL's dead. Let's be honest. 5G and all these wireless things, they're not going to be a real home internet service. So if all you have is cable and that's all that's in town, what's your option to bring in any sort of competition?
USI,
or as they say, if you have cable, what's your problem?
Well, what if it's a poorly run cable system?
Hard to imagine.
Yes,
which just describe most rural cable systems.
Yeah,
they're nothing like the ones in Minneapolis. So.
I mean, I don't know what people expect these communities to do. I mean, otherwise they're just going to get creamed because
you just gave the common sense entrepreneur answer, and that's. I mean, I work for cities, but I give them that same advice. Only do it if you can make it work financially. You know, cities are not irresponsible about this. They're not socialist about this. They're not giving it away. No city. I've never worked for a city who wanted to subsidize the network permanently, because that's poison in a city. That's how mayors lose their jobs.
But let's be honest. If you're a young family moving and you have a choice of communities to move to, are you going to move to one that doesn't have any connectivity? I mean, that'd be like moving somewhere that doesn't have electricity back in the 40s and 30s. You know.
No, then I want to jump in.
I think we saw that, and during the pandemic, Travis, I think that people in the cities who started doing these mass migrations out of the cities went to these rural areas, and they didn't understand that a lot of these rural areas are not connected. So they bought big mansions and they bought these great products, and then they can't work from home.
No, there's some hilariously bad, dumb people stories from what those people did.
Let me say,
because they never thought you should even ask the question. They never heard of such a thing.
Well, there's certainly a lot of people who don't realize that there are places where you don't have good internet access. One of the things that I will say, though, that's like on our side is that, you know, you have some of the people running local governments or like local government trade associations who are not good at their job. You know, the person that's in charge of the North Carolina Association of Counties keeps going around telling everyone that Starlink's going to solve everything. You know, or that 5G is going to be great. And so if you have people who are supposed to be representing the interests of all of the counties in the state capital, and that person is just woefully misguided, well, of course you're going to have bad policy. I mean, you're basically sending a 12-year-old to go out to the big leagues to try to like compete. I mean, that's not going to happen.
But this is what I don't understand about these small towns. They understand how they derive their tax revenue, right? It's from homeowners and businesses in these communities. It would seem like this would be one of the fundamental things that you'd want to invest in to attract, you know, customers if you're a town.
I was going to tell Chris, if you weren't such a socialist, then the North Carolina person might be watching your show and get more educated. I'm just saying. I mean,
well, that's why we do it. I try to insult the people I want to educate. That's a very classic approach that I have.
Hey, Ryan has the best comment ever on the show in the history. By the way,
yeah.
Buddy,
we need an ability to put stars up around it, like a heart signs around the comments. So I want to switch over to, as we're getting closer to the end. I was having a conversation with one of Doug's competitors, another consultant, and talking about fixed wireless because I wanted to offer suggestions, and we're going to be doing a post about this to cities, counties, whatever, that are going to engage in partnerships or give money to fixed wireless operators. I'm not going to talk all these people into investing in something that's more long-term or whatnot. And even some of them may even be good solutions to go with fixed wireless. I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush, but it's a simple fact that there's some companies in particular and others here and there who do not deliver, and they make these wide promises, and then local governments hand over money. And so I want to talk for a few minutes about what should be in a contract if you're going to give money to a fixed wireless operator in terms of making sure they're going to hit their mark and make sure they're actually going to do what they're promising, but make them put their money where their mouth is. But the consultant that I was talking to, who has a lot of experience in this industry, said, you know what, Chris? I don't know that I have a single client who's satisfied with the fixed wireless solution that they got over the past, 5 years or whatever. So anything earlier than that, fixed wireless really sucked. Fixed wireless is way better now than it used to be. Doug, I'm curious, do you have any clients where you feel like they would come back to you and say, you know what, we're really glad that we think that we've got everything that we need and we don't need anything more if they've gone with a fixed wireless solution?
No, I have a few dozen clients who built fixed wireless with the absolute intention to eventually convert it to fiber. So it's a good way to get the customers, get them fast, get them affordably. This stuff doesn't last real long. It really doesn't. The radios rot out in the open weather, and so 7-8 years you're going to have to spend the money all over again. And so some of them have done this long enough ago that they've actually started to replace it with the fiber, and these grants are going to make that easier. So to me, it's a great entry. But in this year of big money, if you put your money in fixed wireless this year, you're missing the one and only boat, and you're not going to get another chance to do that fiber except out of your own pocket. So
isn't 7 or 8 years pretty generous?
No, well, there's physical deterioration, but there's technical deterioration. The fact is, there's going to be way better radios in 4 or 5 years. So the radios have literally doubled in capacity just in the last 2 years. So technical obsolescence can hit you really quick. So the answer is no. I don't know anyone either who's happy with wireless as a permanent solution. Not one of my clients.
But I have a question for you, Doug. Or do you really think that if they use fixed wireless with this money, that they'll never get an opportunity to use it again, like you get federal funding? 'Cause I think they will. I think this pot of money, there will be another, like, as we say, what's the funding of the week? I think there's going to be funding down the road that they would apply for.
Well, I think we're going to have, if it is, it's going to be 10 years away because, the time to build all the networks from this round of grants is going to take forever and a day. I mean, Treasury came out and said, oh, this is a 10-year, in 10 years, everybody's going to have good broadband. I think that's what they really think this is. And so we're going to have to wait that long. So I don't think it's going to be 2 years from now. Maybe, and then we got all the people that we give this money to who screw up and don't actually deliver. So is there going to be a second round of money to bail them out or to build someone else there? I'm not optimistic, but if I want to be a consultant until I'm 85, that's good.
Is it only 5 more years?
No. I got a little bit more than that. So I am nearing into 70 though. The years are cracking.
Oh, seriously?
I'm 68. Yeah.
Wow. Travis?
Broadband, Doug. Broadband.
I guess I'll echo Doug's opinion. I think fiber is a good tip of the spear, but it is certainly not the end game. What I would do is
I think you mean fixed wireless. You said fiber is the tip of the spear.
Sorry. Fixed wireless.
Wait, if that clip ever gets published.
Yeah. Sorry, I had that Rona shot today, and I'm starting to fog out a little bit here. The booster. I'm on my 97th booster.
That's right. We'll just can the show and we'll start over.
Yeah.
We'll start back.
I think wireless is a good tip of the spear. You go into an area, you get some customers. You generate some EBITDA, you leverage that EBITDA with traditional bank financing, and you build fiber, and then you come right behind it. And at the end of the day, you have a exponentially better network, and you got there using your subscriber revenue for the most part. I mean, I think it's a genius way to do it. The problem is a lot of the operators I run into, they get a little lazy once the wireless is up and it's running. They don't really, now they got a little cash flow coming in. They got they're doing okay. They got a little nicer house, and then they think they're going to ride the train forever. Well, it doesn't last forever.
And that's what I see happen. All of a sudden, the lure of a big check at the end of the year, they're going like, oh, maybe I won't reinvest that. Maybe next year. That's exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
motivation.
I've had a few guys who are like, boy, if I can just milk this thing out 5 years, I can retire.
Right.
Like, what is their motivation from going from wireless to like fixed? Because, or to fiber? Because I mean, they might not have any motivation to switch, right? Like, why? Like, if they,
well, we see this with
AT&T
AT&T and whatnot, right? I mean, AT&T and Verizon are like just furious with people that have fiber available but keep taking copper services.
Most of the people that I talked about, Kim, are electric co-ops and people like that. So the fact is, they do have that long-term motivation to do it, right? So yeah, a little. You can remember these little wisps. Not the big wisps, but the little wisps who started out of their garage, they don't have any money. They are the most undercapitalized ISPs in the country. And they don't really, most of them, until they get to a certain size, don't make any money at all. They barely squeak by. So they're not, those guys don't count. They're not going to get the fiber because they have no chance to walk into a bank and get a loan. Zero.
But and I think that's what's being sold, that we'll change, we'll do this, and then we'll go to fiber, which I think is selling a bill of goods that is never going to be delivered. So I think we just have to be careful on that.
Right. And that's where, I mean, I don't want to sit here and just speak ill of those people in those situations who are out labor of love, trying to connect their neighbors using available technology and stuff like that.
I think those guys are the most awesome people. These are the same people who started dial-up ISPs. These are guys who go, my neighbors have nothing, I'm fixing it. These guys are awesome. Yes.
Right. It's just they face. So that's one of the things that I feel like is then, so that you're in a city or township and you have some access to money, you want to give it to those folks, but you don't know, some of them are like, oh, we're going to use this technology. It's going to be amazing. We're going to be able to do 100% of the town for like 200 megabits a second. You give them the money. And then a year or two later, like, you know what, like we're going to do half of the town. It's going to be like 50 megabits. And like, that's where I feel like that's what I want to get to, is like a performance contract.
Well, and by the way, I can now retire in 3 years instead of 5.
Well, exactly.
But that's where I feel like.
Oh, good. I don't think these WIFs understand how much more reliable a fiber network is, how you can sleep at night, how you can scale, how you only have to roll a truck one time to do break fix. I mean, there's so many advantages to the fiber network over the wireless network. They get caught up in their daily routine of fixing radios, climbing towers, and they sometimes can't see the forest from the trees. That's what I've seen. But the reality is the town should dictate that if we're going to give you money, you need to run X amount of fiber per year, or X percent of your gross profits need to reinvest back into the newer technology.
Right. I mean, that's where I wanted to jump in to say, I feel like that's where we're going to try and grab some contracts as examples, but like to say, all right, in 1 year, you're expected to be able to deliver to X percent of the homes this level of service. It will be independently tested using this mechanism. And if you don't hit that, then there's penalties or you don't get the money. That's one step. You go down and you have like these milestones that they have to meet to get the money, and you pay afterwards. You don't pay up front. That can be hard because then they have to go and get to a bank to get the money, to get a loan. But at least I would think a bank would loan on the basis of that money coming. But the other potential one is to say, all right, you need fiber to like these 5 towers. The city's going to build and own the fiber to those towers, and we will lease it to you at a very low rate or for free or whatever, as long as you hit these goals. And then the city has an asset that it can use moving forward if the provider doesn't perform as expected. To me, that seems like 2 really good approaches compared to just, here's your money, good luck.
I have a better approach.
Okay.
Don't make a contract with a little guy who's not bankable, because if he gets hit by a car, you just lost your ISP. They're not a good risk to do municipal money with. And I hate to say it, but that's just not a smart investment. Now there's bigger wisps, totally different story, right? But there's guys who are well capitalized. But a little guy, as a little guy, he's month to month and they never make it, and a large percentage of them fail every year. And it may not be for any other reason than he's just not a good businessman. And you're really cities should not be lured into that. They go, he's the smartest guy in the county. I hear this. He'll take care of us. But it's like, this is municipal money you're handing him. You should look around a little bit more. Again, I love these guys, but I don't know if I hand them a $500,000 check. That's real different.
Well, the example I'm using is actually with I would say a small to medium sized business. But yeah, good points, Doug. So
I think it's a great thing. But what we're seeing in Utah is that these WISP who have the best of intentions have no ideas how to deploy a fiber network either. And they are making assumptions. They are saying they can deliver. And you're like, they're not. And you're like, you had no experience and you made all these promises. So I think it's like what Travis said is that the fiber is more efficient and they don't know that, but we're seeing Whisper getting into this game who have no clue what they're doing and taking a lot of like government money and like city money and basically just blowing it because they just don't know what they don't know too.
Well, they're making all the rookie mistakes because I hate to tell you, but this is the same guys who did dial-up ISPs. They will not ask anybody for advice.
Well, and let's be clear. We're not saying that we're not saying what Doug just said is that they're not dumb. They're just making mistakes that Kim and Travis have already done and have learned from.
Yes. Travis made all his rookie mistakes the first year. Then he got good.
Yeah.
Right.
But in fairness, if you do go to the WISPA show, you will see that the vast majority of people have a high interest in transitioning over to fiber.
Oh, they do. They all know fiber's better.
But it is my worry. Honestly, it's my worry about the 6 gig spectrum, how great it is that it happened. But does it just re-breathe life into the next wave of fixed wireless for the next 5 years? They're going to be chasing now 6 gigahertz because there's spectrum out there again. Same thing that happened when we went from 2.4 to 5 gig.
It's not quite as wild as that because there are some power restrictions on the outdoor use of that compared to indoor. I don't think it's going to be as good as people are thinking.
Okay. So we'll see. I'm just, whatever we can do to keep evangelizing that fiber is the answer. That's I think the mission here.
Every time I feel like we're just kicking a dead horse, I run into people who are like, yeah, I think we're going to go with this wireless solution because it's cheaper. And I'm like, over what term? Like, just,
I'm going to tell you, wireless is so much more expensive. It is exponentially more expensive to run a a wireless network than a fiber network. And I've been doing it for 20 years, and I can tell you, it's undebatable, indebatable. Let me Google that. Yeah.
And you're talking about operating costs. It's
operating costs. Yes, it is more expensive to deploy, but to operate for customer satisfaction, customer retention, your attrition is virtually nothing. When you put it as a full business model together, they're not even in the same category. So
Travis, you bring up customer retention, which is something that caught my eye, talking about AT&T's new pricing. Doug's going to bah humbug this, but it looks like AT&T is simplifying their pricing to more of a flat and less of a promo nature. I've read that Verizon had done that as well, and that there's this question about kind of like, do investors in Wall Street and do others now appreciate that this whole thing of like promos and massive churn is actually not long-term sustainable? And are they now going to a flatter pricing that's going to be more basic? AT&T does not have any bandwidth caps as part of this new pricing for its fiber product in like 90 markets or something like that. So hit me, Doug.
You misread the press release. They are going to simplify pricing for the 2 and 5 gigabit products. It didn't say anything about all the rest of their products.
No, I thought it did. I mean,
no.
I didn't read the press release. I read Wall Street analysts based on.
I've read the actual press releases several times, and I believe this is just how. And they didn't have data caps on the 1 gigabit product. They've been waiving those for 2 or 3 years. So I think they've already had simplified pricing. They should go to it because they're, but. And I think they effectively do. Verizon's had it for about 3 years now. Their price is their price. It's set fairly. That way they stop negotiating with people. It's a very smart thing because that turnover, nobody gains by winning those customers who change ISPs every 2 years. Nobody wants them, right?
Yeah, you're encouraging churn with promotional pricing.
Exactly. So Verizon figured that out. And Verizon just had a very good year of adding customers. I think in the long run, that's paying off for them. So, I think that's working, because the cable companies they're competing against are specialing like crazy. If you go to the web, you're pretty convinced that Comcast only costs $30. It's $29.99. I looked for a 100 megabit product. It's not, but that's what they're going to tell you on the web. So, They play
And
those games like crazy.
I don't know if there's different in markets. I'll just say that whenever I've dealt with Comcast, I've been getting flat pricing. And what they told me I pay each month is what I pay each month. It hasn't been as gimmicky as it was in the past for me. That's just my personal experience. So I don't really know.
But if you get the $39 or $20 price, the day's going to come when it jumps to 70. I mean, it's flat price for a while, and then it's flat price again at a much higher number.
And I think that Comcast has gotten better, that it's not 3 months promotional pricing. It's usually like the first year, and then they go to other level. But I think one of the problems is, and that the telecom industry has been hit significantly on this, is that their customers that have been with them for 10 years have the worst pricing, and they don't value their customers. They value the new customers because they give that promotional pricing, and I think they hit with that pretty hard. So they're trying to kind of, like, they know that, like, these guys know they have to compete right now. They know they're being challenged, so they're doing everything they can in order to keep the customers and improve their reputation. So, like, these cities are not considering different models. So I do like it, because I think for the first time we're actually seeing big telco coming out of the gate and saying, oh, we can do this. We don't have to play games if you really, if there's a potential of competition in some of these markets.
Now, I see some of them doing just the opposite of all this. I believe Charter has gone to a very sophisticated model where they are fine-tuning their pricing for every single town they serve in. And so
that's where this database is going to be great in terms of the broadband sticker nutrition label thing.
Their sticker is going to have their national price on it. I'm telling you, the price they actually offer to people is different in every town, because I work in a bunch of those towns, and it's like, wow, where'd that price come from? So I think they're getting that sophisticated, which is smart. I mean, they're going to the airline model. So we'll see. So they're doing exactly the opposite of AT&T. So.
You love Charter, Doug. You love Charter. It's your favorite.
It is. Don't get me started.
Now, Travis.
It's my ISP, in case I black out here. That's
Travis, how do you react to all this? Just sort of like, hey, like, come on over to the simple pricing. The water's nice.
Yeah, it's what I find most interesting about simple pricing is when you go in and say, hey, internet's going to be $60. The very first question 99% of people ask is, well, no, how much is it really going to be? And people are dumbfounded when you say, no, $60, that's what's going to show up on your bill, because people are just so used to it being, if you ever seen a CenturyLink bill, they're the best. I mean, they'll have fees on top of fees on top of fees. I don't even know what some of these fees are. I mean, they make this stuff up.
No, some of them are truly made up. They're just completely made up.
Yeah. Building tax fee or something. I think I saw. What the hell's that, right?
Well, it's really funny because, and I agree with you, Travis. Like, if you look at some of our the UTOPIA Fiber reviews, they say when they said they're going to charge you something, they charged you that amount, and you're like, that shouldn't be a positive review.
Isn't that sad that that's what our industry has come to?
I think you, Travis, you literally said this to Senator Klobuchar, I think, and like maybe Senator Markey when they were in town once, that we had a public meeting, and he just came out and you were like, yeah, we've got this crazy thing called calculators, and we can figure out what a customer is going to have to pay before the end of the month, and we can tell them accurately what we're going to charge them.
You know how I never got invited back? Yeah.
There's not a lot of times where we get those opportunities, so I don't know.
That was pretty comical.
Well, did he make a bet with them?
What they really didn't like was my answer is because of the fiber network. They asked how many additional people we want to hire. I'm like, well, none. Because the fiber network just runs. We don't need to hire 1 million people to run this thing, right? So, not the right answer apparently when you're a politician. No. I learned.
Well, not in a public meeting, no.
Yeah.
Last topic is something that I've talked about a little bit before. Travis really likes the idea, so I wanted to bring it up. And that is something I talked about in the Community Broadband Bits feed with Matt Schmidt. The state of Illinois had considered and has not implemented, but may still consider purchasing material rather than just giving out money, it may get a warehouse and put a bunch of fiber and conduit and who knows what else in there. And when the time comes, they can get that to the folks who are building networks and make sure that they have the supplies that they need rather than cash money. Travis was like, this is great. And I was like, well, how do we know that they're going to make sure they get stuff that, they don't get the wrong stuff that like ISPs don't want to use? And Travis, I think you said there's like 15 things that you feel like would be safe, that would be useful, that the state could aggregate, in order and get at the front of the line enough and make sure it's getting good pricing and all that.
I thought it was a genius idea. The reason is my only experience is talking to you guys of where we give all these money and there's all these programs, but it's real hard to actually see what actually happened with it. So yeah, if we could just basically go to an ISP and say, you do all the labor, you do all the installation, you do all the stuff, here's all the parts. And then that would solve the supply chain issue. That would, solve a lot of things where people can start deploying these networks, but we're not going to give them cash that they can buy new Ferraris with or whatever the heck they do and end up in jail, like I've heard with all these PPP money. So
I agree. And they're all the standard size fibers, standard handholds. I mean, conduit, so there is definitely that. I think it's a great idea too, because it gets rid of the inflation too. It's like, well, I'm giving you a grant of 200,000, but I bought it last year for 180,000. Everybody wins here. So
I guess I have a question on this. When you're giving it, would the state be giving out for the whole project or just part of the project when they're talking about this? So,
well, when they give you a grant, and let's say you won $1 million grant, they might give you $500,000 stuff and then $500,000 of cash. So it's just part of what you get.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where I view it as being a challenge, because so you might get this stuff, but you still need all of this other equipment and stuff that might be boggled down by the supply chain. So you're just holding on to it until you need it. Like I see the utility in it, but I see some challenges in doing it as well, unless you're funding.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they can't give you all of the parts, but I think they can say, I mean, in my mind, it's one of these things of like, and it's similar to what we're going to see with NTIA, where I feel like, you don't need to solve all of the problem, but like if you can give enough material to help them get started so they're not super slowed down by it, and if similarly, like NTIA, we don't want them to drop like $500 million on a state all at once in 3 years. We'd rather have them give 50 million next year, or like, and just sort of roll it out more slowly and gradually to ease the work, so it's not start and stop, but you can just get going on something.
I hate to tell you they're going to dump it all once, but no,
not if they listen to me. I've got great ideas, Doug.
The main benefit of giving this stuff out is, the little guys, the little town of 400 people who win the grant, they're never going to get fiber when they order. They are at the bottom of the bottom of the bottom of the supply chain, and so that might be their only chance to get it before they all die. And so. And again, fiber and conduit, the few things that are the really long waiting times, most of the other stuff is not that bad. There's a few things are, but you're not waiting all that long anymore for ONTs and stuff, are you, Travis?
We have
believe it or not, we just put our first order in for 2024
for ONTs.
Yeah. Kim, what were you going to say?
I was like, we're seeing like really long lead times with ONTs too. But I mean, I think that this supply and these parts are really critical to the process. But I think that there's a lot of issues. And I think Jim in the chat said something, but there's like the engineering. Can you get a lot of these even other parts done? And I think we have to focus on all parts to get these projects accomplished, and not just this one part, which is the materials. Which is vital.
I do have one worry, in that if we make this giant warehouse with $14 million of fibers in it, they're going to come up out on Monday and find it empty. So
I did speak with for this week the gentleman that runs Pluma Sierra Telecom, which is the telecommunications company, the fiber company, fiber and wireless company. Just going to keep coming up with different ways to describe them. They're a subsidiary of a co-op in California. And they are suggesting that one of the things they could use, they're like, we can teach people to be, outside plant techs, but we need more fiber engineers and network, type people. And if the state was able to have a pool of them available for us to contract with, that would be really useful.
And that's why there's so many aspects to this project. You can't just say, if I give them this, that it will be successful, because we are seeing supply workforce shortages. to be shocking, there's not a lot of us who've been in this industry as long as the rest of us have. Like, and how do you find this? There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and you have to fix all of them before you can make this project successful.
I did figure out something when I was skating this morning. And I want to say that I did think about, there's someone I heard recently talking about how people in rural areas might be more prone to conspiracy thinking because they're often doing things, building stuff, mowing the lawn on the tractor, doing other things. They have a chance to just think through things. I was doing that on my skates this morning, and I realized why we have the shortage of the chips. It's because they're all going into our arms. Someone probably made that joke better than me.
He just wanted to make sure everyone know that he skates in the morning. That's all of that story.
We found out he's an athlete today. We found out.
And we found that. Yes.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, Chris, is now that Travis has a chip in his arm since he got the booster today?
He might have 3 or 4 at this point. Like, the question is, like, how do you avoid crosstalk? That's what I want to know.
Oh, I'll tell you what. It's interesting the fog you get with that booster. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it didn't hit me.
I had it.
I'm foggy all the time anyway, I guess.
I had it for a day. My brain didn't work. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I think what we haven't talked about is that Travis has a new haircut, and
very nice. Kim has new glasses, and everything's new now. We're using all this money we're getting.
That's right. Travis is going to retire in 30 years rather than 50.
Yeah. So Jim is real quick. Jim has the same thing I got. Yesterday we got quoted 72 weeks on Ethernet switches is the current. It'd be fun to hear what Kim's dealing with on that front, because it's every week it seems like they're adding 10 more weeks to the timeline.
Yeah, like anytime we start a project, we order all the materials like before it goes into engineering. Like we have it like we need to buy everything ahead of time just so we can have as much lead time before we need the stuff. But it is a very big challenge of what is happening on the supply chain front, and I don't know. I have a little bit of I don't know if this is right. So you have the maps that we're waiting for until some of this NTIA money can get out, right? Can be dispersed. So are we going to see that the supply chain ease up as these people are not getting the money as fast as they thought they would? Or do you think the supply chain is just going to stay bogged down?
Unfortunately, the big telcos are the one eating up most of the supply chain, and they're all accelerating. I don't see it lightening up, unfortunately. I mean, they're all building as fast as they can build. So
we're going to cover this in depth next week. Kim and Doug, you should feel free to just poke us if you want to jump in. We have 2 guests. Monica Webb from Ting will be back, and first-time guest Robert from Planet Fiber is Planet Networks in New Jersey, Planet Network. He is going to be joining us as well. We're going to talk about a lot of this stuff, and particularly how do you scale up right now? Not just how do you continue, but how do you really scale up? So
you mean if Kim and I join, you're just going to put us on the screen and we could be guest hosts?
You could be, yeah. Well, we'll give you like 5 minutes. It'll be a countdown while you're. So I want to thank everyone. It's been a wonderful conversation. It's our last one with Travis in the darkness. He's soon going to be in the light, but we might not see him because he's going to be on LTE as he drives across the country. Wave at him as he passes.
Yes, we will be doing them from various McDonald's across the country, hopefully. So,
but only where it's warm.
Is this going to be the one that I did where my face was like frozen for the whole?
Yeah. Well, that was on airport Wi-Fi, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So thank you. We will have Doug and Kim back in 2 weeks. It's going to be wonderful. We're going to have, once again, I'm sure, a show filled with all kinds of things to talk about, all kinds of stuff happening. Very much appreciates everyone's times. Just slipping into Squirrely Dan here from Letterkenny, which just brilliant show. If you're not into it, I was recently on the talking to folks in rural Ontario, from the cities of rural Ontario, and I had to ask, Letterkenny good or bad for y'all? They're mostly fans, it sounded like. I
have one quick question for you, because you had liked a gymnast at the University of Minnesota who was just awesome this week. Did you
No, that wasn't me. No, that was I used to do a lot of gymnastics work, but the new person does a lot of that now. We had 2 perfect 10s.
She nailed it. Oh my heavens. That was great.
She was terrific. So yeah, follow my Twitter feed. You can get all kinds of great stuff. Thank you, folks. And Doug and Kim, don't hang up too quick. We got an after party, and y'all can just wonder how great that after party is. But we'll be back next week. Thank you all.
I'll be back in about 3 minutes, so I'm really here if you come back. So okay.
All right.
It's been a great episode of Connect This.